Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Celebration of You. And I really want to take a time to pause before I introduce you to this amazing guest that you're about to be filled with hope and inspiration. And in the course of that, I want to make sure that you know that I know that we are in a state in our world, in our country, and for everybody that listens, I want to pause and just acknowledge that we're all experiencing different emotions right now. And as human beings, you have permission to experience fear and uncertainty and change and unknown, however it needs to be processed for you. No one gets to determine that. And this is coming through me right now because I feel so grateful that we have listeners all over the world. And at this point in time, we all have something in common. We are faced with something that's a global crisis. That's an uncertain future. And this is when I like to say, there are miracles in the mess because it's time for us to let go of hate and to embrace love and lean into people and find stories of hope and inspiration and fill your mind with positives that can help you endure this journey ahead of you. So I'm excited because the guest today, I only know a very little bit. Like always, I just like to be surprised myself. And she was introduced to me by a very dear friend, Donna Brighton, who I'm going to give a shout out to because I adore and love. And she said, you just have to know Eileen. You two have to meet. So Eileen Robertson Hamra, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, timing, right? You're like,
yeah.
I mean, tell everybody you're sitting in Chicago, right?
Yep. I'm sitting in our condominium in downtown Chicago with my, stay-at-home orders with my 4 kids and a dog and, just trying to process like everyone else, all the rapid changes that are happening. So.
Yeah. And you're sitting in, and I was just sharing with you before we started that our youngest son lives in Chicago, not far from you. And it's just hard as a parent with your grown adult kids living all over the country. And just praying, right? And saying, you're doing with your 4 kids at home. I can't even imagine, Eileen. Like, fortunately, our kids are all grown and gone, but to be home. And I never was a fan of homeschooling. You wouldn't want me to, but now you kind of have to.
So I'm kind of lucky in that regard. 3 of my kids, so a bit of my story. So my first 3 children are with my first husband, and then I have a baby. So there's a big gap between the 2. But the first 3 are already pretty independent. They're junior, sophomore, and then a 7th grader. So, and their schools have been phenomenal about stepping up and providing a homeschooling environment that is pretty good. And then the baby just kind of walks from person to person and provides a distraction that's usually wanted. So, but we just put him down for the nap. So it should be quiet while we're on this conversation.
Well, I thank you. Thank you for being here. And, you have had such an there's been a journey in your life, and we're going to get to that. And it feels as though I have to ask you this question. And like I said to you, my eyes are closed during most of this. And I'm listening to you, Eileen, and picturing your family all hunkered down right in Chicago. And I was asked this the other day on an interview. So I'm going to ask you this as we kick this off. But as a parent right now, how are you communicating what's going on in this world to your children, because they are of all different ages, and what advice right now and maybe you don't even have any, you're just going minute by minute, but how do we keep our children from living and being in a state of fear as much as we might feel it is, right? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I don't really have any answers specifically, but what I'm doing is checking in with each of them and seeing where they are and what, how they're doing and what I can do to support them to kind of keep them connected to their friends outside. Because I think although the school piece is easier to manage, but the social piece, which is, middle schoolers and high schoolers they need the social interaction and they can't get it. So just making sure, I'm supporting them and answering any questions they have.
Good. Yeah.
I'm not really trying to hide anything from them, the reality of the situation, so that they do understand why such extreme measures are being taken, but that this too shall pass, and we don't know, and we're walking into the unknown, and we don't know what it'll quite be like. But I actually, I guess I am also saying, like, and we are going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we're safe. We are going to be fine.
Well, and I appreciate that. I wasn't even part of the plan. It just came over me right now because people listening, many have children, right? Still at home. And there's a level, I believe, an element of not leaving the TV running all day long and just creating lots of chaos, right? By letting your kids, some people are like letting the TV run all day, and that just like emulates fear. It's like, just talk to them, explain to them what's going on. And why this is important, Eileen, is because I feel like you've been through a catastrophic experience that you had to choose how you were going to explain this to your children several years ago, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It was funny when you asked that question. Actually, I did have a bit of a flashback to, so the long story short is, my husband, my first husband, Brian Robertson, was killed in a plane crash. It was solo flying plane, and 3 days before Christmas. And I remember Melanie, Melanie was 8 years old at the time. Brooke was 7 and Max was 4. And I remember Melanie asking me with like, are we going to be okay? Like, it's like, in times of tragedy or times of like now, everybody's question is, are we going to be okay? And I didn't know how, and I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but I actually did have a deep peace that we would be okay. We weren't, we were going to be fine, and we would just have to get through it. And I feel like that's very similar now. Like we will be fine. I mean, yeah, we will. It's not going to be not painful though.
Correct. Yes. It's like you're giving them the certainty that we will survive. We will thrive. We will be okay. I don't know what that looks like right now, but when I think about what that must have been like in that moment of being there, finding out your husband has died in a plane crash 3 days before Christmas, and you have 3 young children at home. I'm going to pause right now because I'm just sitting here and my eyes are filling up with tears because everybody's been through their stuff, but to have that, I don't know. Like, when you look back on that, what and how did you get through that? How did you survive that? Because I want to talk about the book that's going to be coming out too, which I'm sure talks a lot about that. But what was your saving grace, Eileen? How did you keep yourself pulled together?
I wasn't always pulled together.
Well, at least you're honest. I love that you said that.
Yeah. So, my dad gave me one of the best advices gave me the best advice. One of the best advices. I don't know what the hell exactly how to say that. Whatever.
It's okay. It sounded good.
when I first was trying to figure this out, and he was like, Eileen, you just got to be where you are. Like, if you're sad, just be sad. And if you're okay, be okay. And you just taking it day by day. And especially in the beginning, it really was a day by day, it felt like day by day survival. Mm-hmm. And going back, going in and taking care of my kids and taking care of all the things that needed to be taken care of. And, it was a long journey. I mean, it took, it wasn't something that happened overnight. So how did I get through it? It would take a long time to explain that. I'm not really I don't have the short answer to that.
There's not a short answer, but I think the reality is you grieved, you processed, you loved your children, right? Like I don't think anybody knows how they're going to handle something like that because we don't plan for that. And you just, I guess some days you pull up your bootstraps and other days, as you said, I just wasn't all that together. And that's just real and authentic. And I think there's power in knowing that you've taken this journey. And tell us a little bit about, like, you're launching a book. It's coming out in April, like this month, right? It's called Time to Fly.
Yes. Time to Fly, Life and Love After Loss. And, it does go through, the book spans 8 years. So it really goes back and forth, but really it's from, the moment, you're driving to the airport to go pick him up and finding out he didn't make it, to the end of the story, which is the beginning of the new life, right? Which was, I've been remarried and I was able to get pregnant at 46 years old, and the birth of our baby, Zach, who was really the glue. And it's kind of crazy, but, like synchronistically, Brian's died on December 22nd, which is the winter solstice, which is the darkest and shortest day of the year.
Yeah.
And Zach's birthday is the summer solstice, the longest, brightest. I know, it's like so cliche. You can't even make that up, but like that. And there were a lot of things like that didn't go by me, that I felt, not only, I just felt very taken care of. And the story of Mike, is my now husband. I call my late and my now husband.
I know. I love the way. Yeah, I know. It's like
he's my now husband, because no one ever knows how to refer to Brian. They're like ex or what. I was like now, late and now.
Yeah.
Or current. Sometimes say current, but that but it is now, right? Like he's my now husband, but there was a lot of miraculous signs along the way. From the minute Brian passed till the minute Zach was born, it was a series of miracles and signs and hope. And so that's what the book kind of takes you through.
I love that. And I'm so right now I'm doing all these posts around the miracles in the mess, because there are plenty of miracles if we're willing to see them. And I love that you just said all the miracles along the way, which that Brian had something to do with. He's been a part of bringing even Mike to you. I believe that all these things happen, right? Yes. I mean,
it was so like he was so obvious about setting us up. It would be hard not to take notice.
I love these things. Okay. You have to tell us. Okay. So right now, I'm covered in goosies again, and I got to know. So I know this will probably be in the book, but just share with us one of what's coming to you top of mind, one of those miraculous moments that was just so serendipitous and divine in this journey. Just what's coming to mind. Yeah.
So the one that comes to mind was like the immediate one that happened. We were living in Huntington Beach, California. We were visiting my mom and dad in York, Pennsylvania for Christmas, and Brian was flying in to join us because we had gone early because the kids had more time off. And find out that he crashes, and not Mike. See, it's funny.
It's okay.
Brian and I would say like we're spiritual, but we were not religious. So we're like, how am I going to do this? Like, I'm 30, I'm 41. He was 38. I'm like, oh my God, I was not planning on a funeral right now. And, but my mom and dad had set something up, with their church at the time. And then, it's kind of sad, but my brother and my dad went out to the airplane to get the Christmas gifts. Oh. And when they came back, they were like, this funeral director called and he wants you to call him. He called the airport and was asking if he could get your information to call you. And I was like, well, that's just really odd. Like ambulance chaser.
That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah. Right. You're like, how dare you be sicking on me? That's fast. Right.
It's just weird. Right. Weird.
Yeah.
And And my brother was like, no, you really should call him. And I'm like, okay, I'll call him. I call him up. His name is Al Cooner. And he's like, Eileen, I'm a pilot. I landed a half an hour before Brian was supposed to land. I heard him flying in the pattern, and I want to take care of all of the funeral expenses for you.
Oh my God, I'm covered in goosies. Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, so now I have a funeral director who's a pilot who was saying all the right things. And, you can't imagine going through this, but I knew like I was being guided. And then where are we going to have this thing? And he had set me up with someone, and I really wanted it to be a celebration of Brian's life, kind of Quaker style, where people could get up to the mic and share stories about Brian. And I wanted to videotape it all so that the kids could have these stories to remember him by. And I'm like, I don't know where, blah, blah, blah. And we went through a couple places. And then this woman goes, well, how about the Baltimore Museum of Industry? And it's a business museum. Brian was a serial entrepreneur, and it's got a twin engine plane hanging from the ceiling.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Here we go again. Oh my God.
Yeah. It was like, so now I have a pilot funeral director having a celebration of life at a celebrating entrepreneurialism and business with a plane. And it was that, and I could just go on and on. On and on. The song.
Okay. This is crazy.
I can stop.
No, I don't want you to stop. I'm like loving this. I'm just covered in goosies. Keep going. Give us some more, because this is like amazing.
So then I'm like, I'll do this first bit. Then my friend Joe, who had sung at Brian and I's wedding, I let him pick the song. It was like the prelude song in the church. And I called him up and I was like, oh my God, Joe, he's like one of my best friends. I was like, you've got to sing at the memorial service. And he's like, absolutely. And he's like, what do you want me to sing? And I was like, I don't know what, whatever you want. He's like, maybe what were you saying at the wedding? And so he calls me back like a half an hour later. He's like, oh my God, Eileen, you're never going to guess what I sang at your wedding. Cause neither one of us remembered. It had been 11 years. And, a bunch of kids later, we both had kids. And I was like, no, what? He's like, we live on borrowed time. I was like, that's what you sang at my wedding? He's like, yes, it was the perfect song. So it was like sign after sign after sign. And then, you like fast forward through tons of healing. And this did not happen overnight by any stretch, but just, there was some weird stuff that I did in the middle. Cause like, I got a little curious about, exploring some of these like shamans and crystals, and just, I felt like a lot of this was, it was so obvious that there was something more going on. And, I grew up Catholic. I definitely believe in higher power. I don't believe all of the dogma, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I know there's more, but I just got really curious during my healing. And I had went and saw this shaman one time, and it was very bizarre. And he had this big crystal, and we meditated over this crystal. And he said to me, like, you and someone who is coming and Brian all had a pact before you got here. And you were going to do your life together. And I don't tell everybody. Well, now I'm telling everybody.
You are telling everybody, because I love this. I love this so much. Oh my gosh.
I don't want people to think I'm totally whacked, because it's so funny, because I was like driving in my minivan in like Orange County gated community where, my friend had introduced me to this person who referred to himself as Archangel Michael. And I was like, this is a little bit weird, but it felt right.
Yeah.
And I was actually trusting, through this time period. Like I could trust my gut. It was an interesting experience, because I think part of it was I was just really present. Anyway, here I am meditating with this shaman, and he said, you and Brian and someone who was coming, and you'll know who it is, had an agreement before you came here. And the shaman had been working with Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four Agreements. And
I love that book, the series.
Yeah,
by the way.
And he said, you had this agreement, and you'll know. And this is how it was going to go. And this person coming will pick up where Brian left off. And so then we come out of the meditation and he's like, oh my God, he felt awful. He was like, I hope that was not too much. He's like, I don't know you, you're like 4.5, 5 months out of losing your husband. Like that was probably a lot. And it was. And yet there was this piece that I was like, and I wasn't like going to bet money on that, but I was like, so then fast forward 18 months later, when I was introduced to Mike, I was like, oh my God, that's him.
You knew
that's
it.
No, I knew it. Like I knew it. It took a while for Mike to figure out that he was it. But like, it was so, and then, okay. So then we meet, I know he's it. And again, we think we know a bunch of stuff, right? But you never really know. Like, but there was this knowing that we were to be together. And I didn't know for how long, but you
knew it. You just knew it.
I knew
I
it,
know.
but I had also been so sure that I was going to be married to Brian for the rest of my life. So there was this piece of me like, well, I just can trust it now. Right. Like, and I'll know when I know it's not it. Right. But now I know it's him. That may sound odd, and then when I met Mike, I was like, anyway.
You have to tell us really quick. Where did you meet him? I have to know this.
So I met him at a conference. We actually knew a bunch of people in common, but we actually had never met. And that's actually how I was introduced to him. It was actually this gentleman who actually worked with Brian and with his company and been working with Mike in his company and had offered to pro bono coach me as I was trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life now that I wasn't Brian's wife. And anyway, one coaching session with Bob, he's like, you should meet this guy. You should meet, you should meet this woman. You should meet this guy. You should meet this person. And I didn't even write Mike's name down. I'm like, whatever. And he's like, he lives in Chicago and Boston. He's into food and family, and you are too. I was like, whatever. Okay, fine. If I'm ever in Chicago or Boston, and at this point I had moved back to Maryland to be close to my family from California, and I didn't even write his name down. And at the end of the conversation, I had recently taken off my wedding bands, and I just said, Bob, I just want to let you know, I took my wedding band off and I put it on my right hand and I reset it with December birthstones because we were married in December and he died in December. And I'm starting to think about the possibility of meeting someone someday. And he's like, well, that's why I think you should meet Mike. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let me write his name down. And so I wrote it down and my girlfriend came over, I was actually at my girlfriend's house having the call. And so we Google him afterwards. I was like, oh my God, he's so cute. I was like, he's totally my type. I was like, this is a possibility. But it took several more months before we actually met in person. And then we were trying to decide, whatever. It's complicated, right? Life is complicated. Right. So I said, anyway, I don't need to go on all those details. But meanwhile, this one day I have this dream and Brian was in the dream, and I'd had other dreams where Brian was in it and they were not good dreams. They were like sad, and I felt really sad. So I had this dream, Brian was in it, and I was sad. I was like, oh my God, Brian, I miss you so much. And he hugged me in my dream and I was bawling, crying. And I was like, he's like, you don't ever have to miss me. I am always with you. And I knew that because I had been feeling it.
I believe that. Yep. Yeah.
And then he said to me in the dream, so I said, okay, well then what about this guy, Mike? And he said something like, well, he used to be a jerk, but he's a really great guy and I've got your back.
In your dream? He literally told you this in your dream. Oh my gosh.
So then what was crazier was about 3 days later, Mike calls me up and he's like, I just had this crazy dream about Brian. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. I go, do you even know what he looks like? Because he had never met him. He's like, yeah, I've Googled him. And I said, oh my God, what was the dream? And he said, yeah, we were all together at a pool, and Brian came up to me with all of his friends. He was like surrounded by his friends, and he asked me to take care of the kids. But he said, I want you to take care of my son, Max, but I want you to remember that that I am his hero and he idolizes me. And I was like, what? And I hadn't told him that I had the dream about
Right. Oh my
Brian.
God.
And anyway, and that's before we even went on our very first date.
Oh my God. No wonder.
And then he would,
Oh.
and then he would show up in songs. And I mean, Mike was like, it's obvious.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
It's like,
yeah. And then, and then there's the whole story of Zach, right? Like me, 46 years old, I had my tubes tied. I was never going to have another child ever. And I never wanted one. And so really it was like opening up myself to love again.
wow.
Right. Like what it really took to love again. Cause that's not insignificant. And I think,
wow.
Giving myself space to be, to heal enough and continue to heal. Cause it's, as everyone knows, it's an ongoing journey. And then to open up myself to the possibility, because I really, really I would have bet money that I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant. I would have bet.
What are the chances?
Good money on that. What are the chances?
Yeah.
None, because our tubes were tied.
And statistically against you because of your age too, right?
Oh, yeah. No, statistically, yeah. And so we went to the fertility doctors and they were like, well, you could try it, and we met this one doctor in Chicago that was phenomenal, Dr. Beltzos. And she was like one of the first doctors that didn't make you feel like a fool for wanting to try. And we're like, you know what? If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But if we never try, we'll never know.
Ooh, I love that you did that. You took that approach.
And we will always wonder.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't impossible, right? It wasn't impossible. It was highly, highly, highly unlikely. And and so I went through the process and it, do you want the whole story?
Well, I'm just blown away because this is literally, Zach is a miracle and he was supposed to be here.
No, he was absolutely supposed to be here. So I went through 3 rounds of IVF. I ended up getting pregnant on the 3rd round and it didn't stick. And I was like, you know what? Good college try. You did it. You gave it your all. Let's move on to donor eggs. And I was like, I had in my head, I'm very pragmatic and a bit of a type A. So I'm like, I'll do this for 3. And if that doesn't work, we'll look at I was like, I'm willing, right? I'm willing to go the distance. And so we did a round with donor eggs and it didn't work. And I was going to do another round. And I went into the doctors for the baseline, whatever. There's a whole world of IVF language, but we don't have time for that right now. But they were like, well, your body looks like it looks pretty good this month. If we were actually doing your eggs, there's a lot of them, a lot of possibilities right now. And I went to lunch and I really felt I was talking to a girlfriend. I was like, oh my God, should I try one more time? And I texted my doctor, Dr. Beltzos, and she's like, why not? So I completely changed protocol, went through one more round.
Wow.
Of you trying to get pregnant with my own eggs. We had 1 egg, which never made any. No, we had 1 make it to genetic testing. And it was like people were like, "You just need 1." I was like, I hated that. Don't tell me I just need 1. I want 8. Yeah. And it was like, and I had the egg retrieval on my 46th birthday.
No.
And yes, my 46th birthday.
Goosies.
Yeah, I know.
Goosies.
Yeah, it was a miracle. And we found out we had the 1 egg on August 30th, which is Mike's birthday.
Of course it is.
And then we find out that it's good. It's, a healthy embryo. And then we had to get the baby to stick. And it was such a roller coaster ride. But it just, it's a roller coaster ride of ups and downs and miracles though. And I think that's, it's interesting because I in the journey of writing the book, I really actually started writing the book about 6 months after Brian, or not even 4 months after Brian died. Because I would tell those stories, right? I'd be like, oh my God, the funeral director was a pilot. And they're like, yes. Oh my God, you got to write a book.
I know.
And then there's just so many of them like, oh my God. And my sister, not to throw a wrench in this, but my sister had also passed years before and she started showing up again. And I was like, they're like, oh my God, you've got to, her name was Trisha. And I was like, you've got to write a book. And they would choke together. And so then I started writing, and it wasn't until I was actually pregnant with Zach, and I didn't know it was a boy at the time, but I was pregnant, that I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is the story.
Yeah.
This is the full story. And so, Zach is going to be 3 in June 21st, summer solstice.
Yep.
And and I was like this, because, the moment I had to come home from the airport, right before Christmas, and the kids were making cookies, and I had to sit beside the Christmas tree and tell them that their dad was never coming home again.
Yeah. Oh.
From there to having Melanie say in the hospital room, holding her baby brother, I never knew, I had no idea I was going to love him that much.
Oh my God. I'm gonna cry.
And it is that beautiful. It is that tragic and that beautiful. And so I felt like, and I think it's just really ironic timing, and that I'm sharing this story of hope and what's possible when the whole world is in, a real state of grief right now. That's how I've been kind of describing it. It's like we're all at the beginning of grief, because everything we've known that we could count on, and that there will be a new normal, and nobody knows what it's going to look like. Nobody, except for maybe a shaman somewhere. But
who now we all want to go to, by the way. No, thanks to you. We're going to go find him.
But who knows? Yeah. I don't know.
But what's beautiful, like, my love? I have to tell you, even the timing, I'm literally sitting here with tears and goosies, because look at the timing of the book, And a Time to Fly, that you've been writing for 8 years. The time that it needed to come. This is all part of, and I always say, I'm like you. I raised religious, but I'm not religious. I found I'm incredibly spiritual. And when you let go of the formality of religion, you can embrace the highest love, which is your spiritual side. And so I just have to say this, because you have trusted something much bigger than you. You have trusted all the miracles along the way. Not only have you trusted, you've been given the eyes to see them. And it's time. And it had to be now, not last April. Right? Not 2 years ago.
I know.
Go figure. Right?
I know. I wanted this out in November, because it's been like done. And I'm like, come on, it's time to fly. We can't wait. Like, that's the point of the book. It's time to fly, people. No time like the present. And yeah, you're right.
It's all time now. And this is crazy, because you are going to, and this is all part of the Zach story, the Brian, the Mike, like everything, the way it's all coming together. This story will not have been told and be shared the way it will be now, because people need hope more than ever. And we are grieving. Even if you haven't lost somebody to the virus right now, it's impacting our lives. And we all need hope. So your story, okay. So as we wrap this up, because I can't wait. Do I get the first book? I want a book, please.
Sure. Yes, I can send you one, and everybody can buy them online.
And I want you to tell people where to go. Like, tell people how they can get to know you and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a website. I did that. I didn't know I'd have to do that, but I did that. So it's EileenRobertsonHamra.com. You can buy the book everywhere. It's distributed by Simon & Schuster. City Point Press is the publisher. I'm actually having a virtual launch party, so I'm not sure when this is going to be aired, but it's April 22nd, Earth Day, which was the original plan. Brian was in the solar energy industry, so it was actually going to be, again, perfect timing. But now everybody can come. So if you're interested, there's information on the website. You can buy the book anywhere: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your indie books. I'm so excited. Yeah.
Target. And you know what's crazy? Wait, and just in case I'm not missing another miracle in the moment, is it not that this has been released this month, April of 2020?
Yeah, it's literally being released on April 22nd.
Okay, and
2020.
We are recording, just so when people do hear this get released, it is April 1st, 2020. We did not know when we planned this interview that today is the beginning of the month that your book is going to the world.
Yeah.
I cannot believe this. This goes in the book. This goes in the addendum. You're going to have to write an addendum, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's just sort of like, keep noticing the miracles. I love that you said that. And just, acknowledge them and notice them and be where you are. And like when you're sad, be sad. And when you're noticing a miracle, notice a miracle. Like,
and
it's
they're
good.
everywhere. And I think it helps us change our vision. It's a paradigm shift instead of constantly looking down. And as I say, I choose not to live in woe is me. I choose to live in wow is me. And I think in times like this, we are given a gift, which is to develop our resilience. And we dig deep and we find our spiritual core. And I think that's another big miracle in this journey. And I just can't thank you enough. I feel like I have a new best friend in my life. I feel like I can't wait to meet you when I get to Chicago after all this crap is gone.
Yes. Yes. Our family, your son lives right down the street. We absolutely will meet.
It will be before you know it. And I am just going to say thank you. I'm sitting here with my eyes closed, with my hands like in a prayer, saying, like just bowing and saying thank you for being willing to be brave and courageous and follow the nudge that you've been nudged all along, and to now share that. It's going to bring hope, Eileen, to so many people.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you so much.
Well, give every one of those beautiful children and Zach a big kiss and tell Mike, I can't wait to meet the new Mike. The new,
exactly. The now husband.
Husband. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day and just enjoy this time to cherish your children. Right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, love.
All right, you too. All right, bye.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.